opinion, this video is all you ever need to totally discredit everything. Like, I am very comfortable saying that if you watch this one video, you can very safely throw out every single thing you've heard about Shapiro. An honest person would never, ever, ever, ever try to use numbers in this way. Okay.
So I'm actually both a Destiny fan and a Ben Shapiro fan. Although I've seen this particular video from Ben Shapiro years ago. I think it's very well done. It's very well made. The sources check out. They're all peer research. So I'm interested to see what his criticisms are.
So this is what we do. For 4 minutes, he takes a different data point, a different time period, and a different poll for every country to determine who's radicalized, okay?
So taking different metrics and different data points is important, right? Because when he's talking about radicalization, this isn't just one particular aspect. Radicalization can take different forms, and he's going to elaborate, I guess, on what things he believes are radicalization, and we'll see if we agree with them.
Like, let's just listen to the qualifier that we have here, okay?
Indonesia is the world's most populous Muslim country.
Okay.
It's got almost 205 million Muslims living there. According to one 2009 poll, it showed almost 50% of Indonesians actually support strict Sharia law, not just in Indonesia, but in a lot of countries. And 70% blamed the United States, Israel, or somebody else for 9/11.
Blame the United States, Israel, or somebody else for 9/11.
Yeah, so the second portion doesn't really make much sense. But, I mean, the first one I think is important, right? And I don't like that Destiny's going to skip right over it. I think it's important to look at what percentage of people want religious law implemented in their country, strict religious law.
So does blaming the U.S., or I would probably blame the United States for 9/11, does that make me a radicalized Muslim?
No.
Muslim. Does that make me a radicalized Muslim?
Muslim.
Because I think that maybe the United States foreign policy had something to do with 9/11, with the Taliban, with the fatwas that, what's his face? Bin Laden wrote. Like, you don't think that maybe that played a little bit of a role into it? That our presence in the Middle East, like, am I a radicalized Muslim now? Or the idea that Muslims want Sharia law everywhere? No fucking shit. It's their fucking religious law. Of course they want Sharia law everywhere. They're fucking Muslims. That's the whole point of their fucking religion. Just like Christians want the 10 Commandments in a fucking courthouse or whatever, or want us to say under God that was added in, 1952 to our fucking national anthem, or have in God we trust on our fucking dollar bills. No fucking shit. Everybody who's religious wants the religious shit everywhere. Does that make you radicalized?
So this is a little bit of whataboutism, but at the same time, we can disagree and we can criticize people who want to put the 10 Commandments in courthouses. And in fact, Destiny probably would criticize that. And so it seems weird that he's giving a pass to Muslim nations that have much worse infractions upon people they want to enforce through religion, through the legal system.
No, of course not. What an absurd fucking statement.
I also don't know if that's comparison to a lot of what he's going to bring up in this video.
Now we magically have 143 million radicalized Muslims in Indonesia.
We do. More radicalized. You scared yet? We're just getting started. Okay, Egypt, 80 million Muslims. According to that same 2009 poll, it showed that 65% want strict Sharia law in every Islamic country, and almost 70% said that they had positive or mixed feelings about bin Laden. So that's...
Does having positive or mixed feelings about what I'm very curious, because now I know how this poll was structured by his reading there, and what he did was he took the positive feelings about bin Laden and the mixed feelings and he conflated them there. I wonder what the difference is between the positive and the mixed. How many had positive feelings? Was it like 10%, and then 50% had mixed feelings? I really wonder what the breakdown is there in terms of how they felt about bin Laden. And even if we grant that all of them had positive feelings about bin Laden, does that necessarily make you a radicalized Muslim? I mean, like, what is our bar here?
Having positive or mixed feelings about someone like bin Laden, I think, is probably kind of problematic. I would say the same thing about people who have positive or mixed feelings about Hitler or other terrorists. I don't know.
55.2 million more radicals. Pakistan has almost 179 million Muslims. 76%, just over 3/4, want strict Sharia law in all Islamic countries.
Why wouldn't you want strict Sharia law in all Islamic countries? If your religion is Islam and you're a Muslim, of course you want Sharia law. What?
He's missing the point, right? Oh, fuck. of course the Nazis want to kill the Jews because Nazis want to kill Jews. The problem is that people want to kill Jews, right? That's the problem. And if it just makes sense to you that Muslims want to do this shit, maybe that says something a little bit about mainstream Islam.
Why would you? What is?
That is another 135.
How does that make you radicalized? What is your definition of radicalized? I thought it was like funding fucking terrorism.
No. Supporting strict implementation of religious law in your country and against other people is pretty radical.
4 million radicals. Bangladesh, not a country you tend to think of as Muslim, but there are 149 million Muslims living there. As of 2013, just over a quarter said suicide bombings or targeting of civilians was sometimes justified.
Suicide bombings or targeting of civilians is sometimes justified? That's going to be your bar for radical people in this country? Who do we have that both political parties, this is not just a Republican thing, both political parties in the United States support a country that is constantly bombing civilians? In fact, I could be wrong because my history is really fucking bad here, but I thought at one point in the United States history, didn't we bomb a country with fucking huge bombs 2 times and killed a bunch of civilians and we thought that it was justified when we did it? Or was it Germany? I don't remember. Who did the big bombs?
He's about to compare World War II, the situation in World War II Japan to modern-day Bangladesh.
On Hiroshima and Nagashima. Does anybody remember this shit? Anybody have this shit? Like, does that make you a radical? Because in the United States, we definitely think that killing civilians is sometimes... Trump himself has said that he would kill the truck drivers driving the fucking oil going back. He himself said that, I'm not going to drop packets to let him know we're bombing him. I'm just going to fucking bomb that shit. So does that make us radicals? Everybody that supports Trump is a radical? Trump is a radical because he thinks that
Trump's pretty
sometimes
radical.
Killing civilians is justified? That's your threshold there?
Yeah. Another
Blowing up civilians that aren't involved in the war effort, it's pretty radical. And I think Trump has said a lot of things that are pretty radical, right? Targeting the families of terrorists, that's pretty radical. And I think Destiny would agree that that's pretty radical. But of course, because this is Islam, he can't agree with that.
82% want Sharia to be the official law of the country, and 2/3 said honor killings of women can sometimes be justified. Honor killings.
Honor killings can sometimes be justified. I'm pretty sure that I could get my mom to agree with this because she's a hardcore enough Christian that I don't know what he means by honor killings. I don't know what an honor killing is in Islam. But like, come on, like this is the most disingenuous manipulation of random data points across like different countries.
No, this is disingenuous. This is a disingenuous point that he's making himself, that Destiny's making. If you think honor killings of women is sometimes justified, I mean, if you can get your mom to agree with that, then your mom has some pretty terrible beliefs. But no, I don't think it's reasonable to expect people to believe that honor killings, killing women to preserve the family's honor. I don't think any reasonable person would have mixed feelings about this.
To try to build our number, like
2/3, it's 121.9 million radicals. Nigeria, 75.7 million Muslims live there. 71% favor Sharia law. That's 53.7 million people. Iran.
Wait, that's it. That's just it. They favor Sharia law. They favor the religious law that goes along with their religious texts. Oh.
Yeah. Implementing strict religious law in your country? Yeah, that's pretty radical.
Okay. Also, keep in mind, a lot of Muslims that support Sharia law only want it to apply to other Muslims, right? Because if you were to ask them, like, are you in favor of Sharia law? They'd be like, yeah, of course, Muslims should follow Sharia law. The same way that if you were to ask a Christian, do you think that you should follow the Ten Commandments? Well, of course, every Christian should follow the Ten Commandments. They don't necessarily always want to enforce it on other people. Also, what Sharia law even means depends on what flavor of fucking Islam you...
So, we'll address whether or not what flavor of Sharia that we're talking about, but the first point I don't think is necessarily, I think it's a worthy point to be made, right? But implementing this against other Muslims doesn't make it, I mean, I guess it might make it a little bit better, but it doesn't make it good, right? Implementing religious law upon other Muslims, your religious law upon other Muslims, it's not good. The other part that he neglects to mention is the prevailing attitudes in the Muslim world about death for apostasy, right? In many Islamic countries, if you want to leave the Muslim faith, they want to kill you. They will kill you, right? At least that's what the vast majority of people believe in a lot of these Islamic countries. You had people like Ayaan Hirsi Ali, who had to flee their country because she apostatized. She left the religion and she had to leave. So, sure, if you want to say, okay, well, they only want to apply it to Muslims, but once you're a Muslim, you're in it for life. This appears to me to be a little bit more like a gang than any kind of real ideology. Although it is an ideology, but a very gang-like ideology.
You follow, like which hadith you follow, how you have it implemented in your community. Like there's a ton of variation.
There's a ton of variation, but all of them are bad, right? It's just a gradient about how bad it is. Any kind of religious law is bad, and the reason Destiny's trying to muddy the waters and to make it seem like it's not as bad, I think is disingenuous in his part.
Here, Lawrence Southern has been called out on this bullshit in the past, where basically when people like Shapiro say Sharia law, what they're trying to get you to imagine is like a Muslim running down the street with a fucking axe, like chopping people's heads off because they show like a little bit of fucking ankle. The interpretations of Sharia law are absolutely not the same across Islam in the entire world. It's like insanely fucking stupid.
So notice how he makes a pretty good criticism about what people are saying, and then he totally neglects to follow it up with a nuanced position against, right? This is entirely, this is just, it's disingenuous.
74.8 million Muslims. 83% favor implementation of Sharia law as of last year, so that's 62.1 million more radicals. Turkey has 74.7 million Muslims. And 32%, is a moderate Muslim country, probably the most moderate Muslim country, 32% said honor killings of women could actually be justified sometimes. So that's 23.
Yeah, if you believe that honor killings of women can sometimes be justified, I think it's a pretty radical belief. I mean, can you imagine if that was mainstream Christianity, or if 1/3 of Christians believe this in America, right? Since you always want to, what about to Christians? No, it's just not comparable. Like the level of extremism and the level of religious regressivism, it's just not comparable.
Could be justified sometimes.
Yeah.
So if you think that,
it's never
so
justified.
if somebody asks you, could you ever justify an honor killing of a woman? You're like, man, maybe sometimes.
No, you say
that
no.
Makes
No, you say no. I mean, imagine if that question was asked. Like, this question should be easy. Can you kill a woman if she dishonors the family? No. That's the answer. It's a very easy question.
To a radical? Like, do I have to do this? Are we done? Like, I don't like Shapiro. I really don't like Shapiro. Done. People give him so much credence because he talks quickly.
Keep it up.
I just think it's funny that Destiny's saying this.
Like, I hate it.
0.9 million radical Muslims in our
He's trying to make the point that terrorists have to draw support from more radical populations around them. I'm sure you'd agree that there are radical American beliefs that are unhealthy. Yeah. Don't you shit on Christians all the time? Yeah, but if we want to have an honest conversation about Muslims that are supporting people, okay? Like, do you think that that 200 million people in Indonesia are all financially contributing to people in the Middle East? Like, that's not how these types of relationships works.
Nobody said that's how the relationships work.
Especially in the Middle East, where your divides are along like Sunni, Shia, and what is it in Syria, the Ayatollah or whatever, right? Like these people are drawing their support from specific countries and from specific actors in specific countries. It's not like you pass around a fucking bin.
And those actors in those specific countries are supported both financially and spiritually and culturally, really, from the groups that they come from.
Like at your fucking mosque, you know, every night, and you're like, okay, you know, everybody throw in their $20 for our fucking ISIS bombers, you know, over in Iraq. Like that's not how these types of money operations work.
Yeah. So we can go ahead and look at some of the data that I have pulled up. This is the data that Ben Shapiro was referencing. So this is the data that Destiny brought up, right? Should Sharia apply only to Muslims? We see this is pretty good trend. This is a pretty good trend. It's above 50% in every area, it appears. But then we look over at death penalty for leaving Islam, right? And so, you know, while it's great that they think that strict Sharia law should only apply to Muslims, I mean, it's not great, but it's, I guess, better than applying to everybody else. When we look at the death penalty for leaving Islam, we have here Pakistan, 76%, over 3/4. Over 3/4 of people in Pakistan want to kill you or think you should be dead if you decide you no longer want to become a Muslim or no longer want to be a Muslim. 86% of people in Egypt, right? Now, I want you to people say like, "Oh, this has nothing to do with your fundamental religious or moral frameworks. Like your religious framework and moral framework doesn't matter at all when you're talking about actions. It's only economics and whether or not you come from a war-torn country." Um, it's a shame that these polls didn't poll people from Saudi Arabia, the incredibly wealthy people in Saudi Arabia, but they did poll people from Iraq, right? And so we have 42%, which is about half of people in Iraq compared to people in Egypt. 42% still horrible, by the way, but we see a very huge discrepancy between a war-torn nation like Iraq and a country like Egypt when it comes to wanting to kill you if you want to leave Islam. Um, I think I think it's not a terrible point to say that culture does matter here, and religious indoctrination matters, and Islam, just like any other hateful ideology, absolutely plays a part in a lot of the radicalization that occurs. So yeah, this has been a critique of Destiny's video, and this is LPPI Media, and see y'all later.